So I think that I will call the meeting to order at 7:01. And I would like to acknowledge that the Board of Education acknowledges we are on the traditional territories of the Comox First Nation. We would like to thank them for the privilege of living on their land and the gift of working with their children. It was another very beautiful day. I'm sure all grateful for being here in this beautiful valley. And first item here, the adoption of the agenda. Could I have a motion to adopt the May 25th agenda, or are there any additions? Trustee Howe and Frawley, are there any changes? No, we have quite a jam-packed, exciting agenda. So are there any opposed to the adoption? Great, thank you very much. I do want to make a note here for anyone who may be watching in any capacity that we do monitor at the end of the meeting. There is an opportunity for us to take a look at any questions that we may have received, an email or other ways to communicate with us, and those are monitored, but it's a bit of a process. So we're asking that anyone with a question might, if it comes up, if they already know from the agenda package, or if it comes up earlier on in the meeting, if they could get that question in early. Last meeting, I asked if there were any questions, and there were a couple, but they weren't picked up at the time. So I know they got answered afterwards, but it would help to have questions coming into us a little bit ahead of time. And the last meeting as well, we finished a little early, and so that does make it difficult if we wait till the very end. So just a protocol item. Item 3, board meeting minutes. And your package included the minutes of the April 27th regular board meeting. And if we could have a motion to adopt those. Trustee May, second Trustee Waite. Were there any errors or omissions identified? No, then all in favor, or any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. The minutes are approved. I see no unfinished business. And we have a report on the in-camera meetings, which have been held recently. This is a new format, I think, Superintendent, Secretary Treasurer, and seems to be very helpful. A summary of the number of things discussed, general topics at our meeting on April 27th, and 2 special meetings held on May 18th. And we'll just accept that and move on. I don't have a lengthy board chair's report at this time, but I did want to give a bit of a summary of things that I attended in the last month, which give a sense of the type of work that partner groups of various kinds are doing that are relevant to our school district. First meeting of interest, our Indigenous Education Council had a special capacity building session, and a very interesting report from Carla Helgeson, the Indigenous Analysis Department, or Analytics Department in the Ministry of Education, on how are we doing. And I was so interested and impressed to know that there is some really solid tracking of the data about our student performances at various key points, and how our Indigenous students are doing in particular. And a lot of that information is really valuable, being used to plan programs and make sure that we continue to see improvements in the success of our Indigenous students and all our students. It was extremely interesting. And our district principal, Bruce Carlos, also presented on plans in the fall for further development of a renewed Indigenous education agreement. And it looks like there will be some interesting consultation going on. I attend a number of other regional meetings where groups are talking about topics that are really relevant. So one was the Comox Valley Children and Youth Matter. It's a group of mental health practitioners, and this was a strategic planning session on trauma-informed practice and how to bring that as a general approach to all of the service delivery people in the Valley. Very interesting input from a lot of the partners that are working most directly with our children and youth and families. The CVRD recently has prepared a poverty reduction strategy, and the school district was invited to participate in that, and there was a draft report presented on that. And of course, poverty has such negative impacts on our students, and the impacts on our very youngest, most vulnerable, and their families. And this report is going to be very valuable in terms of the type of interventions and supports. Obviously, housing is a top of mind for everyone, but some really good collaborative work coming out of that. And other meetings, the City of Courtney official community plan has lots of implications. A draft is completed and will be out for public consultation soon. Lots of implications for our school district, and just a lot of the different ways where agencies working on initiatives that have relevance to us and are an opportunity for us to participate. It's been extremely interesting, and even though we can't meet in person, that seems to have got people having more meetings than ever. So moving on, we have no presentations and delegations at this point. Education committee meeting.
So our next our next meeting or our last meeting for this academic year or this school year will be on June the 8th at 6:30. And the topic is going to be a presentation from our critical incident response team.
And we will hope that Paul Berry has no other call-outs that night.
Fingers crossed on that one. Yeah,
that'll be really interesting. We will perhaps.
Jeff has a backup plan. You always need to have a backup plan when you're dealing with critical incident response. So there you go.
A virtual link to us from the top of Mount Albert or something like that. Yeah, that'll be fascinating. We have unfortunately had occasion to require that. All of our staff, the team did an amazing job, and I think sharing that information and the basics with the public will be really useful. So thank you for organizing that.
Jeff, did you have anything else you wanted to add on that?
No, I was just going to say that, yeah, well, if something were to happen, we would have a plan B in place. We'll cross our fingers that we don't need to do that, but we'll have something ready to go in case that happens.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the critical response planning, is always having plan B. Strategic direction. Now we get some interesting information here. I'll turn this over to Superintendent DeBayo.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. It's hard to believe that we're entering June. It has been a year, unlike any other that all of us have experienced, but it always never ceases to amaze me how things continue to go on in our schools and the good work and the success stories that we have in our schools. And this is just a little sampling of some of the things we had. And my first apology is going to go out to one of our elementary students named Kesh. And the report was filed, and unfortunately we didn't get Kesh's last name, or the school they attended, but Kesh was the winner of the elementary school category in the Legacy Schools poster contest. And it was interesting, the title of the poster is really, or the caption, it captures it all. It says, all of nature is about being connected to the earth, our culture, and our family. And a great message, and congratulations to Kesh for that. And you can see that more, and that was tied into the Downey Wenjack Foundation and Legacy Schools project, so congratulations. Another student on the other end of the spectrum at their secondary end, Danielle Eggleston, a student at GP Vanier, was awarded a $40,000 post-secondary scholarship with the CMOLIC Foundation. and recognition for her achievements in overcoming adversity and excelling in her studies. That is absolutely incredible and something she should be very, very proud of. We are very proud of her and her accomplishments. So congratulations, Danielle. As well, Mark Isfeld Improv Team. Our district has a great reputation and a long history of improv teams. And the Isfeld team, the junior team #1, won the junior national championships. That's across this country. The junior team #2 came in 3rd, and the senior team #1 came in 2nd. It's across this country. So congratulations to the team members and their coaches and parents for supporting those students. Great results, and it's wonderful to see. Royston Elementary had some they had a contest called Books for Bikes. Lots of reading going on in Royston, and the Comox Masonic Lodge donated 2 new bikes to the school with helmets to add to the prizes. And thanks as well goes to Canadian Tire. And children entered the draw with a ticket for each book they read. Angeli and Connor were thrilled to have their name drawn. And in your agenda package, you can see a wonderful photo of them with their new bikes. So what a great contest, reading Books for Bikes, great program. A few other things that I'd like to draw your attention to on our website, and you're familiar with this, we talk about our program. I'm trying to think of it, Sharing with Sheila, that's it. Sheila Powell, our HR, one of our HR folks, has another episode. And this one, she's meeting with Young Hee Edmonds, our homestay coordinator. And Young Hee just goes through her role in the district and in our international program. So it's on our YouTube channel, and that is just posted. Excuse me. Speaking of our international program, we have right now our reports as we've met our enrollment for next year. And I think we're slightly over. We initially predicted 185, and we're slightly over that for next year, which is wonderful news. It shows that the confidence that the world community has in our program that we offer here. Of course, it is that time of year as well where districts across the island, you may have seen this, are looking for homestays, and our district is no different. We will be starting a campaign tomorrow to to find potential homestays for the students. Just want to read a couple of things off of this letter around homestays that I think is really interesting when we talk about the precautions that we have taken and how we've changed our processes. Although many of us should be fully vaccinated by September, any student arriving in Canada requires a negative COVID-19 test result before they fly. Then they are tested again upon arrival and also need to be quarantined for 2 weeks. They also require a third COVID test on their 8th day, and this test has to be negative in order to have them out of quarantine. So that's just a small sample of the process that goes through when we welcome international students. And as everybody could tell by the announcement today, the plan is that we will be back to that spot in September where we're in a fully open state. I think we're all keeping our fingers crossed and continuing to hope that'll happen. Some good news out of Brooklyn. Brooklyn PAC has funded and contributed to the building of a fabulous new garden. We have 16 garden boxes in an increased fenced enclosure filled with 20 yards of organic compost. Classrooms are working with PAC garden experts, lush garden advisors, and planting up a storm. Their greatest challenge is water, which we'll be doing our best to find the best access to keep the spill and mud mess out of the building. So congratulations to Brooklyn and that community for their adventure with their new garden, fenced garden, and I'm sure the kids and everyone will be checking on that over time to see how fast things grow. This time of year is all about staffing and all about budgeting. And a little bit later on, we'll hear from our Secretary Treasurer and Director of Finance around the budget. And I can tell you that we are in a position now where we have just about completed our staffing. for the upcoming year. Recently, we've completed our admin, staffing, principals, vice principals, along with their placements. And tomorrow we will be sending a communication out to our staff around principal and vice principal placements for the upcoming year. So that's always signs a lot of work, and thank you to those trustees that were involved in the hiring process. Our registration is still for kindergarten, is still going, and we were updated last time by Director Douglas on the numbers, and they were coming in, and they still continue to come in. It's something in our community we've seen over the years. Registration continues throughout the summer, and it really hits a peak actually in August. So we're seeing that people are still moving here to the Valley, and we're getting them in schools and preparing for a good start next year. Other than that, at this point in time, I'm going to leave it there because we do have a packed agenda, and I will answer any questions that anyone has.
Any questions or comments from people? Yes, Trustee Caton.
So just regarding registrations, you talk about the kindergarten registrations. Have you noticed a trend at the middle and the higher grades, or is that something that usually surprises us in August on the impact of those ones? So how are our secondary school and our higher grades looking for new rivals?
We're getting some in as per normal, I would say, Trustee Caton, normal amount we would expect at this time of year. Middle and secondary, for some reason, we see a greater increase in August. That's when most of our students new students tend to register. And
with NIDES Navigate, being that we're kind of not in the pandemic mode we were last fall, and our NIDES Navigate had over 1,000 students join us last September. What is the outlook looking for NIDES Navigate? Same thing, are numbers down, or you really can't say till the fall, till once everything is rolled over for that one also?
Yeah, it's really hard to say with NIDES Navigate because a lot of students' early commitment is they want to return. So it'll be hard to determine what the numbers actually will be. We're anticipating a slight decrease in NIDES Navigate, but not a huge number at this point. I don't know if the Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Manning, has any more information regarding numbers of Navigate.
Yeah, I would just say that all of our bricks and mortar kids, or most of them in district, have opted to return back to their school setting, and we're still seeing that trend continue. However, in speaking to Jeff Taylor, the principal, they have retained quite a few kids from out of district that seem to want to continue with NIDES Navigate. But as Superintendent DeMeo said, we're probably not going to match the numbers that we saw last fall when this pandemic was on us full force.
Great, thank you. It's just, yes, those are important questions. You'll keep us updated on the enrollment. That is the real unknown piece of our whole process is who's going to be there. I had a comment, on the improv. I think that the other teams, Vanny, I know also did quite well, but it was all virtual. I absolutely can't fathom how they're able to do it, but it appeared to have been a pretty good experience, and a lot of thanks to the staff and many volunteers who helped those teams get there. I think that our Vex Robotics team's also doing the whole thing virtually, and they also did really, really well. So as usual, we're proud of all those students. I had a chance to go by the Brooklyn Garden, and this is the garden where the first load of lumber that they had fundraised for and purchased was stolen. But community members really stepped up to replace that. And so I had a chance to look at it, and it just looks terrific. Definitely hauling water is going to be an issue, but I just think that all of them, Megan Colling is the main coordinator of the project, and all of the families and the kids did a lot of shoveling, and Megan really wanted to express her appreciation to the principal, Erica Black, for that. She just did a really super job in helping make it happen. So they're pretty excited about what's in the garden right now. Very nice. Any other questions for Tom on this? Yeah, okay, and now we're moving on to Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you, Chair McDonald. So the big question now as we roll into June is what's happening with grad this year. And as you recall, last year we had basically drive-through grads at all 3 of our big centers and also at Glacier View. And even though we had an announcement today that's talking about after June 15th, being able to allow 50 people to gather, that still isn't enough to affect what we're planning on doing and all the plans that the high schools have made. So I connected with all the secondaries, and they're planning very similar grad events to last year, where it will be a walk across the stage, receive your diploma. However, it's coming in, getting out of your car, doing that, getting a quick photo opportunity, receive your diploma. Everyone will receive a video opportunity to watch the valedictorian speeches and some other presentations via video or hard drive, some digital access for them. All 3 grads will take place on June 26th. Vanier's will start at 1 and Isfeld and Highlands will start at 2. And the Glacier View grad will take place on June 24th, which is the Thursday before the 26th. And that will take place at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the back area of Glacier View, very similar to what they did last year. For those of you who may not remember, Glacier View did they called a drive-in grad, where they had everyone pull in their cars, and it was just like a drive-in movie. People stayed in their cars, and they had a stage set up, and the students walked across the stage to receive their diploma. And I believe they were able to, in a smaller venue, have speeches and things right there for the students and their presentations that they gave. So very similar to last year. Crossing our fingers for good weather for everyone the way we had last year. And probably the only good news about this is that everybody's used to this format now, and they've done it once successfully and they feel comfortable with how it's going to run. And if they need to troubleshoot little items, they'll be able to do that. Are there any questions regarding that from any of the trustees?
Trustee Caton?
I mute myself here, sorry. So I attended the Isfeld grad last year, and I must admit that was probably one of the funnest, best grads I've attended in a long time. The energy, it was great. But going back to Glacier View, last year, due to the numbers there, we weren't able to watch it. They wanted to keep it just to the Glacier View family. Will that be the similar this year, or would the trustees have that invitation? Because Glacier View, to be honest with you, is one of my favorite grad ceremonies to watch those students who've overcome such enormous struggles and walk across that stage brings tears to my eyes. So I'm just wondering, Jeff, would the Glacier View one be opening for trustees to attend, if appropriate, or will it be similar to last year, just for the friends and family, like just for the family members of those amazing students that are graduating?
Yeah, I can see Tom wants to weigh in here, so I'll let him.
Thank you. I asked the question of the principal, and yes, we will have room for trustees at the Glacier View grad. So we will get an invite out to trustees, and what the principal will work with the school in determining how many they can accommodate and a location for trustees. So once we have that information, it'll be forwarded on to
So if you can maybe get that to me, and then I can make sure that we've got a couple of trustees at each of them and figure out that assignment. Yeah, that's great.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I agreed with Trustee Caden that it was really very touching and a very intimate experience, and I think the students felt tremendously supported and appreciated in the event. So different, but still a recognition of them. So now we are going to turn ourselves over to Secretary Treasurer Hooker to lead us through one of the most exciting parts of our yearly cycle, the annual budget bylaw.
I am so excited to hear you say that. I thought nobody else loved the budget but me and Candace.
No, we love it.
Yes, Candace and I are thrilled to bring a draft annual budget presentation and bylaw to the board agenda this evening. So The package starts on page 14 of your board book, and in the package you'll find a briefing note regarding the budget bylaw that we're bringing before you, and then the actual ministry template documents follow on page 16 to 30. So what I thought I would do was just go through a brief PowerPoint presentation on the budget to kind of summarize the draft documents that you see before you. So I'll just share my screen and go through a quick PowerPoint. So can everybody see the screen? Okay. So this is our preliminary annual budget that is prepared as directed by the ministry and the School Act based on our projections that we submitted in February to the ministry. So in the documents, you'll find a summary on Schedule 2 of where our revenues come from. So predominantly from the provincial grants, and then other revenue is listed on the document. And so how that rolls up is, sorry, I apologize. I think I skipped a slide. Nope, I just went right to expenses. So on Schedule 2 of your budget document, you'll see that overall the revenues that we're projecting from the ministry, they're $98,442,793. And the expenses are budgeted for $97,211,131. So of that, salaries and benefits are projected to cost approximately $83.9 million of the budget, and service and supplies will be approximately $13.3 million. And further, so the same expenses, the ministry asks districts to represent two different ways. First, through salaries and benefits, and then service and supplies. And then on Schedule 2C, the ministry takes the same $97,211,131 and splits them up into 4 functions. So function 1 is instruction, function 4 is district administration, function 5 is operations and maintenance, and function 7 is transportation and housing. So of the $97.2 million, we can see that 82% is spent on instruction, so function 1, 3.9% on function 4, district administration, 11.9% on function 5, operations and maintenance, and 2.2% on function 7, transportation and housing. So the next statements that are presented for you are the special purpose funds. So those are on Schedule 3 and 3A in your package. So again, these are funds that we received from the Ministry of Education for specific purposes, like the annual facility grant, the Learning Improvement Fund, Community Link funding, Strong Start, Classroom Enhancement Fund, etc. So overall, the funding that we're expected to receive in 21-22 is $11,511,204. And because they're special purpose funds, we budget the amount that we're projected to receive from the ministry, and then we budget to fully expend those funds. And predominantly, they're spent on instruction. So 11.1 million is spent on instruction, with a small amount for operation and maintenance and transportation and housing. But overall, those the Schedule 3 special purpose funds are fully budgeted to be expended next year. So the last thing on the ministry documents are Schedule 4, which is a summary of our capital funds. So on Schedule 4, we amortize our facilities, and we report that as deferred capital revenue. And then we show an expense as well that offsets that. And then that rolls up as well with tangible capital assets that we purchase from the district operating funds. So for example, we don't receive funding from the ministry for a modular, for example. So if we purchased a modular, that would be recorded on this schedule as a transfer from local capital, like a tangible capital asset purchased. So this is where we record those types of transactions that aren't specifically funded capital projects from the ministry that have required operating dollars to purchase. So, and all of that rolls into the budget bylaw that we've prepared for you. So when we prepared this current budget, we set the education priorities for student learning. We tried to anticipate where we're going to be at with ongoing effects of COVID-19, and we looked at our projected student enrollment, the costs of our existing staffing for next year, considering things like mandated collective agreement increases, et cetera, that we've incorporated into the budget. And we tried to determine, if costs were known that we were anticipating changes like, utility rate increases or other things that we tried to build into the document, as well as getting a sense of our projected revenues from international and rental fees and interest income in our ministry grants, for example. So these are the factors that were incorporated into the current budget that we've prepared for you. And then once September comes and we see what our enrollment is, then we will prepare an amended budget for the board to consider that's required to be submitted by February of next year. So this budget was built on anticipated enrollment of 9,271 students. Again, that's just the anticipated enrollment for September. There's always additional February and May counts, both for distance ed and for student support services. But the initial amount that we're budgeting for is 9,271 students. And our updated estimates of enrollment are fairly consistent with that. We're not anticipating a significant change from that. So that was good news that our projected enrollments are fairly accurate. And that was, again, because of the hard work that our school-based administrative team and our education district office support staff in trying to anticipate what families were going to choose for education choices next year so we could staff appropriately. So we wanted to get a sense of what families were going to do so that we could make sure we had staffing in the right places for them to welcome them back to school. So overall, the district revenues are estimated to be $98,442,783, and we are presenting a balanced budget for trustees. We do have an application of reserves to balance the budget based on our ministry direction for enhanced cleaning protocols to carry forward the unspent 2021 holdback and unspent mentorship grant. So those are amounts that we're recording in our draft budget based on the direction we've received and revenue that we've received in the 2021 year that wasn't able to be spent due to COVID-19 and that we've carried forward into 21-22 so that we can properly use those dollars for the intention that they were. As well, in the budget, on the expense side, our preliminary staffing and cost pressures, we estimate our operating expenses to be $97,211,131. So this includes the negotiated wage increases, making sure we have the appropriate staff in our school buildings, and making sure we had some funding for post-COVID challenges, enhanced cleaning protocols, and the HVAC project. So one of the post-COVID challenges that school-based staff are anticipating is an increased need for mental health supports and supports for families as they transition back into the regular classroom. So in the budget, we've included a support for 3 additional youth and family workers, as well as an additional counseling position. So we were able to include those anticipated needs in with the budget that we're presenting for you. So we felt that was a very good news story, that we're able to provide some additional supports for any challenges that families have for transitioning back to school. So, you know, this is a really good news story that we are able to present a balanced budget. And, you know, that's due to the hard work of trustees and senior staff in the past years. And we're not in a structural deficit. We're able to fully fund our staff and supports that we have in the schools. So that without relying on, you know, drawing down reserves to balance our budget, other than what we've been directed to do, or funds that needed to be carried forward for their intended purpose. So, so once we, again, as I mentioned, once we go through the 1701 count in September, then we're able to amend a budget based on the final recalculated grants, and we'll present that to the board for consideration in the fall. So February 28th, it needs to be submitted to the ministry. Oops. Sorry, so is there any questions regarding the budget presentation? And I will stop my screen share for the document. So, Trustee Keaton?
Hey, you guys know me, I always have questions. The first comment I want to say is that thank you for this budget. The budget should reflect the values of the district and the value of this board, and the fact that one of our values is mental health supporting. The fact that you guys were able to find that money to support mental health, I really and truly thank you. It's one of the things I've been advocating years for, is the mental health for our students. But I want to go back to one of the questions, one of the slides, and when I got it, it goes back to starting for the last year and a bit due to COVID-19. One of the things that we were able to do in the past was school rentals. We were able to rent out our facilities for different groups and different activities on the other one. And that was kind of a bit of a rental income balancing budget. And I noticed on your slides, that was under your caveats about rentals and also the international students. And unlike other districts, I'm going to commend the previous boards and the previous people. We never use our international students as a generating income for our district. We always used it as a cultural enrichment in whatever it is. And I thank them for that, because we're not in a deficit like many other districts. But I'm going back to the rentals. Being that the fact that we may be in what some of a normal year next year, based on what happened today and the announcements today, will the district looking at rentals, and would that be kind of being offsetting with COVID? Like how we're looking next year if we start opening up like we did in the past and bring back those community groups into our schools like we used to do and provide that rental income? Kind of a convoluted question, I apologize.
No, that's a great question. So initially, we prepared the draft budget based on a lower anticipated amount of rentals, because we weren't certain what the ministry and the provincial health officer would have for protocols around rentals and larger groups or sporting events. It does, you know, it'll remain to be seen. You know, a lot of the direction that was provided today is based on lower case counts and, you know, not having other outbreaks. So we felt comfortable in doing a fairly low estimate of those potential incomes and other sources to make sure that we were balanced. And then if we are able to increase rentals and have more international students attend, then we can adjust those amounts in the amended budget. So we felt it was better to be conservative with our initial budget, because there was still some uncertainty around where we would be in the fall as far as those kind of opportunities.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think too that, you know, we waive a lot of fees for activities that involve our students, and so the fact that they didn't happen would not have impacted our income so much. I'm thinking that maybe rentals from people from the daycare operators or something else that would be more consistent in the last year for sure. I have a question, Brendan. You mentioned, just looking at your slide, that our numbers of expected students are 9,271 FTE, but on statement 2, where you have the ministry operating grant fully funded FTEs, we're looking at 9,702 plus some adult. And like, I, of course, you know, looking this over earlier, I didn't make the connect. Is that just different? That's apples and oranges or something?
No, that's a great question. Thank you for noticing that. So on schedule statement 2, sorry, that includes the February and May counts, both for distance education and for student support services. So the 9744 is the total amount that we submitted to the ministry on our February enrollment submission, but September is built just on the 9271 because we haven't seen those February and May counts yet. So we they're recorded in this document, and they, you know, the ministry is providing estimated enrollments, but we wanted to build the budget based on the staffing we'll need for September, and then we go from there.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. That makes sense. So you've got trends that would be reflecting what generally happens. So that makes sense. I mean, I'm not going back to divide it out and find out what our per child grant is anyway, because that's way too much math for me.
Yeah.
And thank you.
So the additional FTE will be added in February and May when we do those 1701 counts, but the 92 is the September 1701 estimate.
Yeah. Okay. Oh gosh, it's an interesting process you go through for us.
Mm-hmm.
Quite amazing. Other questions from anyone? All right. So, you know, we're here at a. Did I hear something?
Well, it was just myself. I was wondering if the Director of Finance had anything she wanted to add to the presentation. No,
I think that was great. Maybe just for the trustees, the snapshot that's included in your package starting on page 31 is a great visual aid in providing a link to the actual template you see. Most of the numbers that you do see on here as an example are directly linked to the schedules, which are obviously harder to understand as you just see numbers. So as an example, on page 31 on the snapshot, where we're looking at where the money goes, and it's being outlined the percentage spent on salaries and the other percentage on service or supplies, those are direct links to Schedule 2B, which is actually on page 24 of your board package. So if anyone has any questions as to where the information is actually shown in the template or the linkage between the two, we're happy to provide answers to those questions.
Yes.
I know we all found it really useful, very helpful. It's interesting just to see the numbers, and on the budget, it's, you know, so many millions, but actually understanding that this represents real people, real teachers, and other staff. It's great. We do deliver a lot.
One other thing to add too, in the section that's actually showing on the screen right now on our staff team. So those numbers are changing, and it's dependent on the time where we actually run our staffing reports out of our system. Mm-hmm. Some of you may be familiar with the process where in the fall after September 30th, we were supposed to provide the ministry with updated numbers on currently assigned staffing positions. The ministry this past year removed the requirement for us to provide that report directly to them. However, we are still tracking assignment FTEs throughout our system throughout the year. And so these numbers will change at any given time, but they are a rough ballpark of the FTE that was staffed as of September 2020. So they may not completely jive with what would be assigned and pulled out of our system at this current point in time.
Yes, thank you for that. So
are there more questions? Okay, Trustee Hawksby, I did miss your hand. I didn't see that there. I'm so sorry. Oh, and you were asking about grads from Nalatsi, going back to a previous presentation. We'll refer that to Jeff to answer when we complete this section, if that's all right. Other questions on the budget? Yes, Trustee Frawley.
Actually, I'd just like to make the motion that the annual budget bylaw 2021-2022 be given its first reading.
Second, Trustee Caton. All right. We will, are all in favor? We'll do it with all in favor if we can. Carried, great. And this is just to check in with the Secretary Treasurer. We are not saying the amount in this case, but it is the $118,792,761. Is that correct?
Yes, the total budget bylaw is $118,792,761.
Great, thank you so much. All right.
I'll do the second motion.
Thank you.
The annual budget bylaw 2021-22 be given second reading.
Second, Trustee May. All in favor? All right.
And
is there further discussion about it at this point? We're at the point where we need a motion that is a unanimous motion to waive any kind of delay on this, that we would take the third reading at the same time. I want to be sure. I feel very confident that all of us have had an opportunity. We have had good briefings and we're ready to make the vote. But if there are any trustees who are not comfortable with that, we can have further discussion or delay this. We want to be absolutely sure that we're confident about this as we move forward.
And the other point of order too, Madam Chair, is that even if you have an issue with the budget, you can still pass the motion regarding the bylaw and the third reading, make your comments there. So just because you're uncomfortable, you can still pass this motion that we all have to agree to. And then when it comes to the third and final reading, if a trustee has a concern, whatever it is, that would be the appropriate time. They could also make that comment. So it's just point of process and point of clarification, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. You're absolutely right. And we want to make sure everyone has as much opportunity as they need to feel fully informed and go through our process. So,
sorry, and just
Trustee Frawley.
Go ahead, Secretary.
I just was going to mention that on page 18 of the board book is a copy of the bylaw that is being considered. Mm-hmm. So, and it shows the amounts that are before you.
I'm always pretty confident with budgets because they are just budgets. They're projections and estimates, and they do change when the reality comes in, and we have several times at which they are amended. And I know that we always have an opportunity to ask for clarification if something comes up, that our Secretary Treasurer will be happy to discuss and come up with more information for us as needed. So yes, Trustee Frawley.
So with that being said, I'd like to make the motion that in accordance with section 68(4) of the School Act, all three readings of the annual budget bylaw 2021-2022 be given at tonight's meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Trustee Caton. Frawley, all in favor? Any opposed? Are you opposed, Trustee Wade? Oh, okay, good, thank you. Just timing then. So that's carried, and we can move on to the final reading.
Just to clarify, was that unanimous passing of that motion?
I do believe so.
Yeah, I think so. I saw everyone's hand up for it.
Okay, so we just need to record in the minutes that it was unanimous.
Thank you.
So then I'll motion that the annual budget bylaw 2021-2022 be given the third and final reading.
Second, Trustee May. And all in favor? Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. Great to have that in place. I know that this gives the capacity for our staff to move on with all kinds of things in terms of the staffing and programming that they do, and much appreciated to our finance department, our finance people, and Secretary Treasurer for the work that goes into that. So,
Hey, Trustee Crowley, hand up there, Madam Chair.
what's that?
I'd just like to add on to that.
Oh, yes.
Trustee McDonald. I just wanted to, because I've thanked them within the committee, but I wanted to thank them publicly, our budget committee, who has spent many hours helping us out, whether it was through their work hours and personal hours, finding the time to be with us and work on this. I truly appreciated it. Everyone was very, very kind and thoughtful, and even when the partner groups were going through their asks of everything this year, everyone was being very thoughtful of what was going on with our year with COVID. And so I really appreciate that. And of course, I really appreciate our finance team for all the hard work that they did for us. Wanted to acknowledge them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you speak for all of us on that. Great work. Thank you. All right, so we're back to the capital plan bylaw. Secretary Treasurer, are you going to speak to this?
Yes. So every year, the Capital Branch and Director Hasselgrave submits a capital plan to the Ministry of Education with our funding requests for all different kinds of funding envelopes that we're able to apply for different projects. So school enhancement projects, replacement projects, carbon neutral projects, all different kinds of funding envelopes. And so every year we receive a capital response letter back from the Ministry of Education, telling us which projects they've reviewed and approved from our capital plan submission last June. And so this bylaw that's before you on page 33 of the board package is a bylaw that we hope the Board of Education will consider passing this evening so we can access the funding for the projects that the ministry has approved. And at this point, we're not able to share publicly just which projects the ministry has funded for the district, because there's still some public announcements to come from the ministry capital branch. But we're asking that the board consider the bylaw that's before you so that we can go ahead and start accessing the funds to have the projects proceed over the summer, and so the Director Hasselgrave can start the work on the projects. And we will provide further details as soon as we're able to provide that information publicly. So on page 33, there is a bylaw. The capital bylaws are just to allow us to access the funds. We have what's called a certificate of approval from the ministry, and this gives us access to be able to draw those funds.
You're muted, Sheila.
There's someone cooking in there. Toasty Caden.
So I'm going to make the motion because I really want the money for our district. The capital bylaw number 2021, CPSD 71-01 be given first reading.
Second, Trustee Howe. All in favor? Yes, that's excellent. We need, yes, Trustee Wade.
Can I do the second one?
You may indeed.
All right.
We'll spread this around.
Great. That capital bylaw number 2021-22 CPSD 71-01 be given second reading.
Second, Trustee Frawley. All in favor? Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to waive the third or waive the delay?
I'll make a motion that in accordance with section 68-4 of the School Act, all three readings of the capital bylaw 2021-22 CPSD 71-01 be given at tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Seconded. Trustee Hawksby.
And this one has to be unanimous also.
Yes, this one is unanimous. Are we all in favor? I believe we are all in favor. Thank you very much. Trustee May, would you like to do the next motion?
Thank you very much. Gratitude, Chair, and good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone that's in attendance. In May, we had an opportunity for
I just need you to read this particular motion. I'll call on you later, but I was trying to make sure every one of us had some hand in passing our capital bylaw. So we're looking.
I can read the motion.
The third and final reading. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was just way too excited there.
You
Sorry.
are excited. That's great. Yeah.
I can read the motion. The
Okay.
capital bylaw number 2021-22 CPSD 7101 be given the third and final reading.
Thank you so much. Second,
No
Trustee
worries.
Crawley. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, great. So we will be expecting to see a van full of money roll up soon. That's the way they still do it, I'm sure. Thank you very much. We're still in our finance section here and operations. We're looking for capital projects update briefing note. Is that our Director Hasselgrave, or will you speak to this too?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I will turn it over to Director Hasselgrave to speak to his briefing note, which is on page 34 of your board package.
That's right. So thanks very much, Brenda. So the capital project update really focuses on three major projects that we have underway right now, which is the Lake Trail seismic upgrade and the Hornby School replacement and the outdoor classrooms. The report also advises that Denman Island Child Care Facility is complete and it opened up for the first kids on April 6th. And all reports are that it's working out exceptionally well. A little bit more work we're doing at Denman, just to replace some basketball hoops and other things that we had to fix up in the process of creating that facility. But I would say the report right now is that we're in good shape on our capital projects and looking forward to having kids in the new Lake Trail and new Hornby schools as of September 2021.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from any of the trustees? That's really a huge achievement. I think that you and all of the team and the contractors deserve a huge vote of thanks. Just amazing work being done. I think that the Hornby School was originally expected to be ready in January or February of the following year. So there's been really good progress there in spite of some materials delays and things like that. Is there, so in terms of having that project done more quickly, were there any savings from that, or was that part of the contract, and has it been offset by the rising costs?
Mm-hmm. In a sense, I think our savings were the costs avoided.
Yeah.
So by expediting the project and ensuring that we had our materials all ordered in a timely way, is it allowed us to complete it within budget, I would say. So there, that was really our saving grace, because we have, the escalation environment around construction projects right now is really out of hand. So it was just a huge blessing that it was done quickly.
Yeah, well, very, very good news all around, and all of them look absolutely stunning. So up there, coming along. So thank you very much.
Okay.
And we do have a motion here to receive the update. Could I have someone to move? Trustee Foley? Seconded?
I will motion that the school district number 71 Comox Valley receive the capital projects update briefing note as information.
Thank you. Seconded? Trustee Howe? All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay. And next, our long-range facility update briefing note.
Go ahead. Okay, so this is on page 38 of the package, and it really summarizes what we talked about in our committee of the whole meeting around the long-range facility plan. That this is very much a facilities plan and not an education plan, but our biggest goals out of this is we really want to get a handle on what our enrollment projections are. And I think we can safely say that we have a really good sense of what the next 5 years will take us to, and we push it out to 10. But the 5 or 6 to 10 year time frame is pretty difficult to predict. And within this, we looked at very many options. We looked at whatever might be possible. You know, everything from middle school models with K-9s and 3 middle schools and 2 middle schools. And I think where we landed is that the system that we have right now works, but it needs some tweaking. And so we need to take a careful look at the recommendations that were contained in the report around how we would balance out some schools and how we make this something that we can, as we push forward for a number of years, we can keep our existing inventory facilities supporting students the best way in the valley. So more to come on that as well.
Absolutely. Are there questions at this point? I thought that it is full of fascinating information. I'm less interested in the different options for different solutions possibly moving, but the information in there about the projections, demographics, history, etc., condition of schools, really quite fascinating. And I think a lot of material in there for the trustees and for you to help or each school to be
well
through some of
those. I
those.
agree. I think the gold is really in the demographics part and the deep look at what is happening in the valley and how the age groups blend out in different communities. I think that's really, really important information for us as we plan.
And it seems we're in a very volatile period and the census coming up. That information should be helpful, but also in the next couple of years to see how things settle, because we're seeing a great deal of change. So basing our future plans on 2016 and the last couple of years seems a little difficult. So I think that holding is a good idea. Trustee Caton.
So thanks. I had a chance to read the report, and this is probably about the 4th long-range facility plan report that I read in my years as a trustee. And I did like the recommendation status quo with the minor tweaks. And I noticed that the comment is reported at a future board meeting. But when we talk about long-range facilities plans, when we talk about minor tweaks and status quo, we all of a sudden get the public kind of, oh no, here we go again. So this is one of those things that while we haven't said what we're going to do, there are some recommendations in that report that will get the community and the parents and that talking. And having gone through a number of reconfigurations in this district over my time, and you were right, the demographics change. My neighborhood, to be honest with you, 5 years ago, there were no children at school. Now I have 22 school-aged children in my neighborhood. So this is how fast it changes. So when people see the report, and it's going to be presented on that one there, the expectation is there's no plans to change anything at this time. We just had a report. We've had them do a review. These are some of the recommendations. And what will the next step be before people all of a sudden start panicking, thinking, oh, there's recommendations in there. They're going to change the boundaries again, because that inevitably what happens when you bring a report to a board and people read it. They assume stuff that's not really true as of yet, but possibly down the road.
So That's why we're presenting the report this evening as a draft report, just so that we can have a public consultation evening. So currently we have a public consultation evening set for Monday, June the 7th at 7 p.m. And so at this point, the report is still draft, or sorry, 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And so our recommendation this evening is just that the board receive the report publicly, so that then we can have those public consultation meetings and answer questions that the public may have regarding any contents in the report. And then that would inform the report. But again, this is a facilities report. It doesn't necessarily mean that the recommendations that are in the report would be what would be the best for the district or the educational outcomes that the Board of Education and the senior team would be looking for. So it helps inform us. It's a report that's prepared by a consultant to kind of gather up the information that Director Hasselgrave needs for his operations. And also it's a requirement from the Ministry of Education for us to have a draft or to have a long range facility plan along with our capital plan submissions. So it helps both our capital plan submissions, our requests for those funds that we just approved, as well as inform us around where we have pressure points within the district and what changes we could consider making. But that wouldn't be done without consultation.
I think, yeah, your points are appreciated, and of course we know that, but I would agree with Trustee Caton that the first response may be, a bit of pushback, and the public consultation is a good opportunity. But I wonder if right at the very first there could be an executive summary that states right off the bat that the options are prepared to meet ministry requirements, but that the recommendation at the present time is no immediate action on any of the scales or something, because we want the attention focused on the challenges, but also opportunities. And I think the programming that we do and what allocations of where different programs are placed is one of the other pieces that's not included in here. So I just feel like a big a note of summary saying that those options are not for immediate decisions would be helpful. But if people will read it how they read it. Trustee Frawley.
Yeah, I have a question, and I know that we're shorter on time this evening, but it's just something that's kind of rattling around in my head. So when new trustees come in, they work on a strategic plan. I'm just curious about timing with long-range facilities plans, why they aren't kind of lined up. I mean, I know we've just in the last 2 terms switched over to a 4-year term, but why they wouldn't switch to a 4-year so that the trustees of the day work on the new facilities plan over their term, and then it switches over to the next people, rather than you're always going to be kind of in the middle, or, do you know what I mean?
I can give you some commentary on that. So I worked on one in 2012 when I first started, and then we were spurred on to redo a long-range facility plan when the closure process for Puntledge did not pass, because that was a key part of our long-range facility plan, and we were at a transitional time. So it really meant that what we had wasn't particularly valid. So that was a trigger to start again. And then I think this one was triggered by our significant shifts in our enrollment data. So when we start seeing that parts of our long-range facility plan are no longer valid, we really have to take another crack at it. So I think I agree that in the perfect world, we would definitely do a refresh on a nice 4-year cycle in alignment with the trustees. But I think we we get affected by the world events of the day, and that's why we take it on. Really, it would be probably once every 10 years if we
Thank you.
ran along as
Sorry, and just to clarify, the ministry does require that we have a 10-year planning window. So we create the document for a 10-year time frame. But as Director Hasselgrave mentioned, it does require updating as enrollment shift and as pressure points get created. So I didn't want to leave trustees with the impression that there's no ask in the plan. If the recommended option A is adopted, for consideration by the board, that would come with some changes that do need to occur if that, in order to make that feasible. So in the recommendations that are presented from the senior team in the report, it would be important for trustees to be able to review those and consider them, and then be prepared to answer questions from the public when we get to the June 7th meeting. So, but at this point, it's just a draft report to put on the table for trustees to consider.
Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. So we will be hearing from the public, and then we will have an opportunity to have more questions and stuff. I thought there was I had a couple of questions. One was that in the conditions report, Royston, the number of the schools that seem to me to be newer, although we have upgraded some of the ones in really bad condition, but Arden, for instance, I didn't know that it seems like a newer school, or some of them. Royston, we recently received a capital grant to do a complete redo of the exterior of the school, and yet it rates quite highly or it has a high number, which is not a good thing. Is that for other reasons?
Well, I think part of it is they only update the numbers once every 5 years. Yeah. So if like his fault's a great example where we've done a significant number of upgrades that haven't been factored in to the reassessment. And there's once you get into an older school, they really do, they'll take something like boilers or building walls, and they do the lifespan on a linear basis. And so things might be perfectly fine, but they look at it and go, well, it's essentially used up. So it's a tough one to really, unless a school is really quite new, it's hard to keep the number down low.
Yeah. There's other, mysteries for me. I often compare kindergarten numbers to what's happening in grade 6 or 7, and I see some of the schools that we might not expect to see. Valley View, Aspen, looking like their numbers will be seeing declines based on who's coming in at these lower numbers. So there's all sorts of other elements to the information that's here. And I think the lesson is, like, we have our facilities, and having this updated report is really valuable, but how we adjust our programming, something like French immersion numbers are crucial. A pressure point. We have pressure points that need to be solved. Some of them are school size and catchment areas, and some of them are program popularity. And now we appear to have another age bulge going through. If what they're saying is the numbers in elementary are stabilizing, but the numbers in high school are going to get bigger again. Well, we've been in that place, and one of the lessons is, how do we keep flexibility so we don't have to keep making really difficult changes, as opposed to being able to respond in very flexible ways. Big questions, right? Big questions. Yeah. Trustee Frawley?
So seeing that this is the draft, and we are having another meeting soon, I'd like to make the motion that the school district number 71 Comox Valley receive the attached draft long-range facility plan.
Trustee Caton, second. All in favor? Great, thank you. So you'll keep us notified about the meeting and get the word out to the public with the report available. So hopefully people come full of questions and ideas, good ideas. Maybe someone will solve it all or have $10 million for more school. Annual facilities grant briefing note.
Okay, we're all the way up to, I think, page 144 in the package for the annual facility grant briefing note. This is targeted funding that's put towards the preservation of assets and our maintenance items that are larger than normal for operating. And it is, it's a pandemic AFG. And this time there's a significant, try to separate our building systems into categories so that we continually maintain the majority of the systems, but this one has a strong lead towards mechanical and ventilation improvements. So there's lots of roof work that's going to happen and 3 mechanical systems that are being worked on, some window work. So there's definitely a stronger lean towards the mechanical side in order to keep chipping away at the ventilation challenges that are in all schools.
Trustee Caton?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to Director Hesselgrave. Ian, as chair of the Vista branch, we had a meeting last week, and one of the concerns that board chairs brought to that, and we talked to BCSD director on there, is the impact the high cost of construction workmanship material of the pandemic is going to have on schools and annual facilities grants. And some of the school districts are looking at downsizing some of their projects because of that. Do you see a need for us to maybe to advocate to the ministry for some more money to offset these high costs? Or are you comfortable right now with us status quo and revisiting it in the fall when you get a better sense on the impact of those higher material costs, labor costs, et cetera, are going to have impact on school districts as a result of the pandemic world that we live in right now?
Yeah, most of our major projects have been tendered successfully and are going to execute at what I would consider reasonable prices. Material costs for minor projects, even things like we have a whole bunch of our portables or modular buildings need new decking, leading up to the front door. And of course, that cost of the wood has gone up substantially. I think AFG has historically been underfunded, and it is a place that there should always be pressure to bring the funding levels up. Typical is you need about 4% of your building asset value on a year-over-year basis to adequately maintain, and we get about 1.5. So that there really is space there, and I think it's well known by government, but the advocacy for increased maintenance funds helps us provide better school facilities for sure.
Okay, so follow that. I'm going to have a notice of motion our next board meeting that our district write the Ministry of Education to advocate for more funding for on that one there. Just a heads up. I'll bring it to the next board meeting because we're short on time tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Janice, I know that was the subject of that major BCSTA committee as well, looking at unfunded costs.
Yeah, that's the committee that I was on working on.
I know, and you definitely have it. Trustee Waite.
What does the FY stand for?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year? Thank
you. Because AFG unfortunately gets funded by the provincial year rather than our school year. So they go, the funding comes April 1st to March 31st.
Okay.
You have another question?
So I just wanted to know if I could move that the Board of Education approve the FY 21-22 AFG spending plan.
Second, Trustee May. Thank you. All in favor?
I just needed to know what FY stood for before, because I was so confused. I thought I knew most of the acronyms, and that one got me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. So do we have it? I think we've pretty well finished our list of capital and related things. Is there anything else, Secretary Treasurer?
No, that's great. Thank you. And so again, I appreciate you passed that motion because that means we can start drawing down the EFT money. So thank you
great.
for approving the plan. So.
Okay. Assistant Superintendent Manning, your hand's up. I have to come back to you.
I just wanted to apologize. I was remiss in mentioning during my graduation report that Nalatsi will also have a grad, and that'll happen on June 10th. And that will be via a video invite to grads. There are 4 students that'll be graduating from Nalatsi this year. So sorry I didn't add that in my earlier report, but I just wanted to make sure I got that out there.
All right. I think we need to make sure that Trustee Hawksby is included as in our representative to that.
You bet.
Invitation. Yeah, June 10th.
Yes.
Thank you.
At 7
Excuse
p.m.
me. And yeah, excellent. Oh dear. I'm going to mute myself, but I will now ask for the report on retirements and recognition.
Alrighty. So there's 10 tonight. I think one happened and 9 are going to be happening in the near future. So here we go. Carol Walters, teacher, Learning Resource Center, will retire effective June 30th after 31 years of service with the district. Catherine Manson, principal, Courtney Elementary, will retire effective July 31st after 23 years of service with the district. Charlotte Hood Tanner, teacher, Highland Secondary, will retire effective June 30th after 26 years of service with the district. Diane Hargraves, education assistant, student services, will retire effective October 31st after 25 years of service with the district. Eva Perret, teacher, Ecole Rob Road, will retire effective June 30th after 30 years of service with the district. Jeff Gummer, teacher, Highland Secondary, will retire effective June 30th after 29 years of service with the district. Judith Mansfield, teacher counselor, student services, were retired effective March 31st after 33 years of service with the district. Merle Irwin, teacher, Brooklyn Elementary, will retire effective September 30th after 22 years of service with the district. Murray McCrae, principal, Glacier View Secondary Center, will retire effective August 31st after 30 years of service with the district. Shelley Ord, principal, Denman Island Secondary, will retire effective July 31st after 28 years of service with the district. And doing the math, that's 277 years of service with the district. And I want to thank each and every one for all of what they've done for the children and students and families in our district. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, that list represents some truly amazing educators who work very hard in our district.
And are we still going to do the bus parade and celebrate our esteemed colleagues that are retiring? Because there's a lot of years there that I just calculated.
I do believe that is still our plan, and will be, yes, going to be. Well, it'll be interesting to know how many we are dealing with this year. If that's an unusual number, but certainly. Thank you. Well, stay tuned for that, for the plans on that, Trustee Caton. So next we have the Finance Committee Board report. Trustee Frawley.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to make this simple tonight. I'd like to motion that the Board of Education receive the Finance Committee Board report as presented.
Second, Trustee Waite. Thank you. Any discussion from the rest of us? Excellent work. Thank you. And all in favor? That passes. Thank you very much. Next, our Policy Committee Board report. We didn't meet, but the subcommittee, Anti-Racism and Inclusion Subcommittee, will you like to report to us, Trustee Caton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Ad Hoc Policy Committee on Discrimination has been meeting over the past few months. We are in the process of finalizing a final draft, just working on a few, the wording on it. The plan is to take that draft to the Policy Committee. Hopefully we'll have a Policy Committee in the next little while. The Policy Committee will then look at it and bring it back to the board in June for the next steps. And the next steps, and Superintendent can correct me if I am wrong, was that we would take this draft out as a draft to the community and have some input. And being that June is the final month in the school year, we're not going to pass it until it has time to go to the community for some input. So we're looking at maybe October, November of next year before we finally pass it, because we want to have that community look at the wording. Discrimination is one of those topics that we need to have those conversations. We want to get it right. So am I correct, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. DeMayo, on the next process?
That is correct. Once the board has received it, and if it's passed, accepted by the board, it'll then go out to partner groups for feedback, and a process will occur there, and the board will collect feedback, and then we can be moving. So your time frame is probably pretty accurate.
Right. And the other one was that the superintendent mentioned at our last committee meeting, the Ministry of Education will be looking at possibly giving schools direction in dealing with discrimination and some policy on that one there. And as a result, we want to make sure that we wait for that information, if it comes true, to incorporate it into our policy.
That's excellent. Well, thank you. It's important work, and it's worth taking the time to do it right. And much appreciation to all of those working on that process. And we did not have facilities committee meeting in May, and we had our other information here. So we will move on now to board business, and there's some items coming forward from trustees. Trustee Howe on mental health and addiction services.
Hi. I just wanted to put it out there that I did give a rebel yell for my children to be quiet. They're being a little bit rowdy tonight. And I did send out some information with the agenda package relating to both of these motions. So for those reasons, I thought I would just read what I had written out, and then we can talk about the motions.
Absolutely.
So when I first submitted this notice of motion, I had been reading articles.
Point of order there, Sarah. You want to make the motion and then speak to it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just pause and just process. Sorry, yeah.
No, please.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. That's awesome.
Sorry about that.
So now I gotta go back in here and find it.
Rattled you, I'm sorry.
So no, it's no problem. Thanks so much. So that the Board of Education for School District 71, Comox Valley, write a letter requesting that the BC Ministry of Education and Government of BC take the following actions. That the Ministry of Education work together with other ministries to conduct a review of wait lists for student referrals and develop strategies to reduce wait times. To provide resources to districts for staffing to address increasing mental health needs. Specifically, provide funding for more counseling time in schools, as well as funding for youth and family program workers in schools. By increasing supports directly in the K-12 sector, it will reduce the burden on Ministry of Children and Family liaisons to school districts and other cross-agency personnel working in schools. To consider how the province of BC can respond to the Code Pink campaign organized by Children First Canada. And last, SD 71 is pleased to be a participant in the Pathways to Hope pilot initiative. Please consider how cross-ministry initiatives can be implemented for September 2021 and expanded to all districts within the province.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? Trustee Waite, thank you. So discussion, would you like to speak to your motion, Sarah, or Trustee Howe?
Sure, so I will, I'll just go ahead and read what I've written here.
Yeah.
When I first submitted this notice of motion, I'd been reading articles over the last couple of years about how our country, and more specifically our province, is being affected by the growing opioid crisis. It was terrifying. I looked into Moms Stop the Harm initiative and talked to some local partner groups about what we're doing here at home. Having lost loved ones myself and hearing stories from my colleagues in the Valley and friends, it has become clear to me that things are out of control. Recently, there have been resolutions passed locally here in the Valley and province-wide in support of change at the federal level. All demographics are being affected every day. Streamline my motions to represent what we need here in BC and in our district specifically. 2 young girls recently passed away on the island, one being the youngest girl in BC at 12 years old. Just makes me feel a little late in pleading for the government to do more and do it fast. As you can see from my rationale in each motion, we need to get moving on some initiatives that have been delayed and figure out how to work together to support our students as the numbers are increasing every day. As we researched the issue, we realized that 2 requests were appropriate, so the original notice of motion became a request for one with a federal audience and one provincial, focusing on mental health and addiction specifically. I just wanted to personally thank Sheila and Janice for kind of backing me up and giving me the courage to bring some things forward. And much thanks to Esther for her suggestions and help, as well as Brenda, who ended up joining the mental health school startup working group to support me in this process. So thanks everyone in advance for your consideration, and I hope your support in passing these important motions. And then I just wanted to see if Brenda, did you have anything to add at all about the details or your group that you joined?
Yes, thank you. The ministry has formed a group that's got a wide audience and participation from all of our district partner groups and ministries. And they were looking for a BC ASBO representative. So I volunteered to join the mental health school startup working group. So the working group is looking at current data and developing strategies to support kids when they return in the fall in the school system. And so the committee is looking to have a report out for June 30th. And the hope is that it'll help inform supports for the fall. And so it's very interesting process. And I think our district is really, I commend the trustees for bringing attention to these issues and advocating for supports. And it's definitely something that is a concern provincially for school-based staff and district staff as to how to support people as we come out of the COVID pandemic. And as we heard from our provincial health officers, this is going to be, a multi-year process of challenges that we'll have coming out of the pandemic. So today was great news that some of the restrictions are perhaps starting to lift, and there's hope for the future, but there's definitely going to be work that needs to be done to help support families and children in the fall. So thank you for bringing this motion forward, and I will keep the board appraised of the work of the committee that is ongoing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that information and for being involved. It's good to know about that. Trustee Waite, have you got a question or a comment for Trustee Howe on this motion?
It's more of a comment. I want to thank everybody who worked together to pull this multifaceted motion together. It's a shame. It's a shame that we're at this place. But the only way to change it is through action, and that's what I see these points doing. It's about it's more than just recognizing that there's an issue. The only way we're going to be able to change it is through action. And so thank you to everybody for doing the work to create this for this motion, and I'm going to be happy to support it.
Thank you. Are other comments? And we might want to go around to if everyone. Trustee Frawley, have you got any comments or anything to add on this particular motion?
No, I just wanted to, like everyone else, it was a group effort that we appreciate. And that's what we need to do is the teamwork. But I really wanted to thank Trustee Howe because this was a big one to bring forward, especially for I think it's your first time bringing forward motion, and I thought you did a fabulous job.
Trustee May, any comments on this?
I cannot say more than what's already been said. Great work, great topic, great issue to bring up, and the timing is right. And I am so proud to be a part of this.
That's great. Trustee Hawksby, any comments?
I just wanted to say thank you for bringing it forward. It was very well thought out and I had a lot to think about while reading it.
Okay. Trustee Caton, I know that you are a strong mental health services advocate and have brought forward initiatives before. Any further comment on this? We do have our second motion as well. So
yeah, just to make it really quick, thanks SJ for letting me work with her and bringing forth this motion. It's a team effort, and our district has always put mental health first and foremost as per our strategic plan. And looking at the impact of the mental health and drug addictions, they go hand in hand, and we cannot be afraid to mention that. And it's time to start speaking up and acknowledging the fact that our students are impacted by both, and we need to advocate for support. And the government is said they're giving us the money. We're still waiting for the money. And hopefully with school districts advocating and asking those questions and supporting our youth, we might get some more funding to support our students where it's needed most. Thank you.
Well, that's great. I'm too will certainly be happy to support this motion. And I'm regarding the Pathways to Hope initiative. I was in a conversation with one of the chairs of the district that was one of the initial recipient of the Pathways to Hope project, and their project is stalled as well. It is still, even though I believe they had their funding a year to 18 months ahead of us, or they had the approval before us, they are still not, it has still not been implemented. I know how hard Director Schatz has been working on this with many school districts and a lot of staff and a lot of partners to try and move forward on this. And the ministry has announced 15 more schools that the program is to be expanded to, and yet none of them are operating. So this particular piece of asking them to get the roadblocks out of the way, I believe that our superintendents are trying to move some roadblocks out of the way, and our advocacy on this will hopefully be helpful. In the ministry, multiple ministries with different mandates, not cooperating on job descriptions is holding up services that our students really, really urgently need. So hoping that this will move forward. If we're ready, if there are no more comments, Trustee, how do you want to close the debate at this point? Have you any further on this motion? And we'll vote and then move on to the next.
Great.
We're good. All in favor? That's great. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Trustee Howe. You still have the floor for your second motion.
Great. Part of the reason why I kind of
if you can read the motion, and we'll second it and then have any further discussion if necessary.
Okay. So that the Board of Education requests that the board BCSTA representative take a resolution to Provincial Council as an emergent issue for referral of the following actions to the Canadian School Board Association and the Government of Canada. To declare a toxic drug supply crisis, to declare the toxic drug supply crisis a national public health emergency, to immediately seek input from the people most affected by this crisis and meet with provinces and territories to develop a comprehensive pan-Canadian overdose action plan, and that the BCSTA advocate for expanded provincial cross-ministry supports for our students around substance abuse. I don't want to take up too much time because there's another motion on the floor, but I think I spoke to it before.
Trustee Howe, I just want to get a seconder. Trustee Collins?
Second.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yes.
I'm just out of
Go
order.
ahead now. Yeah.
Sorry. No, I'm good. I said what I was going to say, out of order or not.
Trustee Caton, you're.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, SJ and I've been working on this motion with our Secretary Treasurer, and as your provincial council rep, I have spoken to the powers to be BCSTA. It will probably come back to the June meeting, but I am going to take the motion and connect with BCSTA to maybe reword it and reframe it to the point that it can be accepted at PC. So it's a great motion. The intention will stay the same, but the wording, if you see it coming back, maybe a little bit tweaked to ensure that it gets to the provincial council floor. We can have all 60 boards debate on it, because the goal is to get it from our district to provincial and then get to federal, because mental health it's a Canadian-wide pandemic, and we need to have all governments advocate for supporting our students. So just a heads up, if you look at it next month and it's a little bit different, that's the reason why.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? Originally, I think this was the intent that we would simply make a motion. The number of other municipalities have passed it as part of a campaign of the Mothers Stop the Harm group, and that we would add our names to it. But this, in fact, does have an opportunity to take this advocacy to the broader group, to BCSDA as a whole. And I think that's a very positive move. So I'm happy to support this now. If there are no other questions, then can we take a vote on this? All in favor? Excellent. Thank you all. Any opposed? Formally? No. Thank you very much. Carried. Thank you, Trustee Howe. And
thanks very much, everyone.
We'll be busy getting draft letters organized and run them past you for sure. Now, exciting. Trustee May, long-term food strategy. Would you like to make a motion? And we'll get it seconded and then we'll have a discussion.
I would. Thank you, Chair. Gratitude for this opportunity. I want to make a motion that the Board of Education for School District number 71 Comox Valley refer to the superintendent to investigate the feasibility of a long-term food strategy incorporating the focus on food security, hands-on learning, and the opportunity to connect with community partners and report back to the board.
There's a seconder, Trustee Waite. Thank you very much. So would you like to speak to this, Trustee May?
I would, thank you. So just to fill everybody in on a little bit of background, in May, an opportunity for a farm school grant was brought to my attention and many of the trustees. And after further investigation and research, I discovered that our school district actually needs to further investigate all of the possibilities for a long-term food strategy that will be actually suited to our district and our community. So with that, I decided to take this opportunity to make a proactive motion to have our superintendent find out more for us. My goal is to evaluate the possibility of a district-wide program that will align with our strategic plan in collaborating with First Nations communities and community partners, educating on environmental stewardship, offer hands-on learning, promote agricultural career opportunities within the valley, increase food security, proactively be prepared for any future grant opportunities, and increase the sustainability of school district number 71. So as a background, the Comox Valley itself has been known as a land of resources to its residents, starting with the First Nations, who referred to this region as Comox, which roughly translates into land of plenty. The Comox Valley has long been known as a farming community, and as food security globally becomes more critical, it's imperative that our students are educated to sustainable solutions. Our community here in the Comox Valley has actually been talking about a school farm of sorts for over 10 years now. And with direction from the superintendent, I think that we have an opportunity to collaborate and bring an idea to fruition. So on May 6th, there were representatives from community partners that met to discuss the feasibility of submitting in the application for the farm school grant that had been recently issued. Participants of the meeting included members of the CVRD Food Policy Council, LUSH, the Food Literacy Circle, School Garden Projects, and other interested in a range of healthy food programs for our students. It was the consensus of the group that the grant was not a good prospect currently. However, the representatives do all want to continue exploring this in the context of an overview, an overall review of school food literacy initiatives with the opportunities to connect and strengthen the network, building capacity and developing greater sustainability. Some of the key points that were brought up were the participants all agreed that taking time to properly assess, identify our priorities, and bring partners to the table for these conversations would be an essential part of a sustainable, successful action of any particular project we decide to go with. As these are food education practitioners, they're more than willing to participate with School District 71 in planning, engaging, finding funders, and delivering these programs through an advisory process or possibly a working group structure. Why a school farm, and why am I making this motion? Gardening improves the opportunities for children, youth, adults, and families to gain interest and eat more fruits and vegetables. Gardening also increases the variety of vegetables that are eaten by children. I've included all of the data from the studies that I'm speaking of right now in my package. Results indicate that the garden to be very effective in enhancing academic performance, physical activity, language arts, and healthy eating habits for children and moving forward into adulthood. Our Comox Valley Board of Education strategic plan clearly outlines the strategic priorities as educational excellence, community engagement, organizational stability and environmental stewardship, physical health, and mental well-being, all of which I believe would be met with a sustainable solution to food security with hands-on learning in our district.
Trustee May?
So,
I'm a little concerned about time. So we have a few things. So I encourage you to wrap this and we'll figure out what we do next.
Okay.
Can you?
So basically Do you want me to continue, or does everybody want to start asking questions then?
I guess it's the amount of time. So we have about 10 minutes. And
okay, just
I think that you have a very receptive group. I see Trustee Caton waiting with her hand up. I'm wondering if Superintendent DeMayo has anything to add. So I am wondering whether the other two items are unlikely to take a great deal of time. Also includes public question period, and I'm not sure if we have anything there or not. But I would entertain a motion to extend for 15 minutes so we feel less rushed. But I think we can also complete if that's the thing. So, but if you are able to stop now and we can see what Trustee Caton has a question or comment and move forward, I think that would be good. All right. Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Caton.
Okay, so I'm looking at the recommendation, and that is a really big ask. There's a lot of work to be done, but there's no timeline. I'm wondering, and I'm looking at the workload of our superintendent and our senior staff, and I think this is going to be something that I'm wondering what timeline are you looking for, because you're asking for a report back. You don't say when, you don't say how. So based on the workload of our senior staff, and this is a really big ask that you're wanting and a really big next step. I'm uncomfortable right now, unless I know from senior leadership that they have the time to do it properly. So my question to the superintendent is time-wise. How do you look at doing this? Are you looking at 3 months, 6 months, sometime in the new year? To be realistic and get it done properly, we can't have this done by June or September. It's not going to work for senior leadership because, like I said, it's a big ask. So that was my concern in supporting this motion, is when you want that report back, because it's a real big ask.
Yeah,
So are you asking that to me or to Mr. DeMeo?
You made the motion and I'm asking the superintendent.
Yes, if I could just say, I know that it's a bit compatible with the motion that you made last meeting, referring some items to the superintendent. And I would like to hear what he has to say, but I think we're realistic about this being a bit of a process, and it might include some consultation and planning that would not start until September. So Superintendent, do you have comments on this?
Sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, process like of this nature, of this scope, to do it properly is one that's going to require time. Obviously, we'd have to do some starting from ground zero and investigate where are we at in food literacy in District 71 with a complete inventory of what we're offering moving forward. This would be something that we would tackle with the senior team, our new senior team, when we assemble in September. And work would begin at that point with the team moving forward. And as was expressed here this evening, it would involve not only finding out what our district has to offer, but as well as community partners. So it will be a process. I don't think you'll see much within, it'll be at least 6 months before you're going to get a report back to do it properly, I think too. Yeah. Because there's so many aspects of this.
So it's a bit of a change from trying to give you direction to submit an application for June 1st, but it is something I would agree with Trustee May that in the long run it's will make it more sustainable and valuable. The Food Literacy Circle project is doing a wrap-up meeting later this week, and we'll no doubt have a report to put forward from how that went, given the COVID interventions and what sorts of directions they're going to provide. So we have a number of things coming forward, but it's not something that it's a bit like developing a IT 3-year plan rather than something to be done immediately. Does that help, Trustee Caton?
It does, but it doesn't. I'm going to be honest with you. I can't support this without knowing the time involved and what senior leadership needs to do. It's a great initiative, but without knowing time frame and all the work that has to be done with all the other stuff that's going on, I think I would rather hear some more details and plans. So I'm not sure at this time if it answers my question.
What details and plans can I provide? Because unfortunately, we were hit with a deadline originally that we were looking at was for June 1st, which is why then we've moved this motion to be adaptive, to be flexible for our board, because currently we have no form of quantification of any of the food sustainability that's even happening right now in our school district, or even knowing how much each site is producing or what they're producing. So in order to align with our strategic plan, it seemed like, giving some flexibility for a time frame and coming back and discussing this would be great. But again, trying to get the ball rolling so that we are prepared if another grant comes up is something that I feel very strongly about, so that we're ready for it, so if that helps.
Peyton, I think that what we're asking the superintendent to do and report back on is investigate the feasibility of it. And I think that the superintendent even at our next meeting would be able to give us a bit of an outline of what that process might look like. But it is not asking him to come to take on without some. So the investigate the feasibility. So it is about establishing what that process might look like.
So in that context, because I as you all know, I had surgery today, so my brain's a little bit muzzled right now, is I will support this motion under the understanding that it is to, a superintendent will bring back a report to the board, giving a feasibility as to how to proceed.
Of what it will look like.
What it will look like, time frame, and that then I can do that, but I don't want to go ahead without knowing all the details, the costs, the implications. There's a lot going on. So in that case, I will do that. I'm also time sensitive. We got 3 minutes to go and I've taken up some of this time, but thank you for that clarification. If it's, as you say, the superintendent will bring back something to the board at the June or September meeting as to how the process will move forward, then I'm comfortable supporting this motion as presented, because we're not saying do it. We want more information as we move forward, correct?
I think that's a way to look at it, and that there will be another step before embarking on
then in that case, I can support that on that premise.
Okay,
so
Trustee
I'd like to call the question, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes. Given the time that we're at, can I have a vote then? All in favor of the motion? Very well. Thank you all for that. And we will have some further discussion before that on this topic. Thank you very much. So I really appreciate both of our trustees for bringing these forward on first initiatives, getting going. We are at 8:58, so we will either have to waive the remainder of this agenda. Your notice of motion is noted, Trustee Caton, and we do have a letter thanking you for your work on the capital working group, and which I am absolutely very pleased to support and see that you're getting the appreciation for that hard work. Do we want more discussion on that? If so, I need a motion at this point to extend for 10 to 15 minutes.
It's more for information. I think we don't have to extend. My letter was more for information. It was just information. There's no discussion on it.
There is no discussion. Were there any questions in the public question period? Or all right, so we may just be coming through in perfect timing then. Considering a great deal of work being done, Trustee Frawley?
I would like to motion to adjourn this evening.
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you very much, Trustee. And Trustee Hawksby, I see a hand up. Oh no, that's my own hand from my cursor. I'm waving at Trustee Hawksby for some reason. Oh my goodness.
Good night, everybody.
Oh, yes. Well, here we are. Thanks so much for all of the work from our staff, from our trustees. Your briefing notes were excellent background as well. And so if we did not have the full time to hear them all, we got the work done, and appreciate everyone working together on this. And I hope that you have a very good evening.